Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Utah Film Pod. My name is Josh Terry. I'm here with Dani Hatch, and we are ready to give you some more news and updates and features and all kinds of good information about Utah movies, not Utah movies, stuff that doesn't have to do with movies at all, because, trying to be going open-minded here. How are things going, Dani?
I'm doing great. I had an amazing week out in Logan. I got to get away before the fall semester starts. And it's just a great time checking out the town, seeing all the movie stuff they have there. So I'm excited to talk about those local things and all the movies that I got to see.
Yeah, well, you can only have a good time in Logan. It's I don't know. There might be a little bit of a bias there. I went there for grad school years ago, and so there's always a fondness to Cache County in general that
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people share. But yeah, well, so let's hop in and see what's going on in the news, because I think that we're going to have a news item that's going to come back to this Cache County subject.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something really exciting. There's an update from Salt Lake Film Society. They do this motor cinema thing where it's kind of like this drive-in theater. They show these older films, and you probably know a little bit more about this because you got the update on it.
Yeah, right. Well, so I know a little bit more about it. I haven't been able to go yet, which is something I'm hoping to address over the next few weeks. Then, of course, we can report back and give you a full breakdown on the experience. But basically, what's the origin of this is that because of the pandemic, the film society theaters like the Broadway and the Tower in Salt Lake City weren't able to show traditional movies. And so they instituted a kind of a streaming service where you can watch their brand new movies online, streaming and stuff. But then they also came up with this fun idea where they would just kind of put together this makeshift drive-in movie theater and just feature old and classic movies. And so that's going to be, they did this last year, and now they're going to be doing the same thing this year. It looks like it's going to be going from like the end of August, about mid-October, because they're wrapping up with some Halloween movies like The Thing and stuff.
Um,
And yeah, so the idea here is to kind of just put together this fun kind of makeshift drive-in movie theater, so you can have kind of the summer experience, but then also be able to do something with social distancing and see some fun old movies. It is actually located, and this pretty important. Motor Cinema is located at the film production studio lots of Redmond Movies and Stories, which is at 1075 South, 700 West. So of course it is not at one of the traditional SLFS movie theaters. This is kind of like their third location, and they're just kind of doing this special thing. And I don't know. I mean, maybe if it goes well, maybe they'll keep doing it even once the pandemic ends, or the second pandemic, or whatever we're in now. We'll kind of see.
well, that was something fun that you mentioned before, where with the pandemic, it's kind of changing the climate of movie making, of movie viewing, right? And so
Right.
this, I think stuff like this will catch on. And I mean, I loved being in a small town, going to the drive-in theater, which
Hmm.
has since burned down, actually.
Oh my
But
gosh.
like, I know, but like those were some fun Friday Saturday nights with friends, and it's a fun thing. So seeing those things reemerge,
Yeah.
I hope they do continue it.
Right, right. Well, I've been hearing for years and years about like the drive-ins going the way of the dodo and stuff, and I've just been, and I'm still nervous about it. Just like you, I grew up, spending a lot of time out at the Redwood Drive-In and going up. The Davis Drive-In used to be one that we would go to. In fact, I think there was one in Bountiful, like right where I grew up, but it actually had closed down by the time I started going to movies. But yeah, no, I mean, I love these places, and every new drive-in experience, I think, is a good thing for it's a good thing for the world.
Hmm.
So maybe I should add that to my list of things everybody should do. Is be able to drive a manual transmission, and make sure that you go to a drive-in movie theater at some point in your life. That'd be good.
So words of wisdom from our very own Josh Terry there.
I try.
Uh,
I try.
I love it. No, but something I wanted to touch on with this is that one of the theaters that I got to go to this week was the Utah Theater, which is a renovated theater in Logan. So, back to those,
Yeah.
fun ways to see the classic films, right? And
Right.
I got to see Raiders, and we were talking about that one last episode,
Oh,
so I was
cool.
so excited to see that one again. And I loved it even more watching it again. I guess it's been a while, and I forgot all these like little details and everything, so that was a blast. But
Nice.
with the details, the Utah Theater was really fun to check out. I love the renovation they did. It looks very classy, I guess. They have like little chandeliers and
Oh, sweet.
by the entrance and mirrors and the staircase leading up to the balcony, which is where we sat. And I think it still probably needs a little bit of work. Like the chairs are kind of like high school auditorium kind of chairs,
Oh, okay.
So they say that they're still looking for donations and everything, but for an inexpensive classic movie experience, it was a blast. And something really fun that I noticed there was how it's very much for the community. Like
Yeah.
people were shouting across aisles before and after the film. And you can tell that, like, everyone knows each other. They're all coming for the weekly movie. They do like little punch passes. So I'm sure that kind of plays into that whole um, customers coming back sort of thing. But I was looking up some stuff about it, and it's kind of fun what they're doing with it. They not only do they show these classic films, they also do theatrical and musical productions. It also has an organ there. So they have the unique opportunity to play a live organ while
Oh, wow.
playing silent films.
So just like the organ loft in Salt Lake.
Oh, I've never been there. That's sick.
Well, sick like good.
Yeah, I'm like,
Sorry.
I'm one of the
Sorry.
kids. It's hip.
Stop using those trendy words.
Oh God.
That's great. No, so I have to ask though. So not that this would discourage me or anybody from going to spend some time at the Utah Theater, but do they have red velvet? Because that to me is like the classic movie theater aesthetic.
You know what they don't? What they have is a lot of pink actually. Like that was kind of
A
more
lot of
their
pink.
their
Okay.
look there. Yeah. Or salmon, I think might be appropriate. But
More
no,
sophisticated.
it's yeah. Oh, I they kind of made it have this opera house feel too. So it's
Oh,
not
cool.
just theater, but a lot of live performances. They have these like curtained off box office seats. I don't
Wow.
think they're like open for use. Maybe they do when it is opera, but like it looks, yeah, it's definitely not like classic theater look, but I would love that. But I think they're going for like the high end look, but make it like really affordable for the common viewer,
Nice. Well, I'll
for all
just
of us
have to
peasants.
right. Well, I'll just have to carve out some of the big bucks I'm making off this podcast and make a donation and get them some red velvet.
Ooh, that might be fun. Yeah.
There we go. That'll be my goal. My good deed for 2021.
Like a little plaque next to it,
That's right. That's
donated
right.
by Joshua Terry. And
The velvet, the velvet on donation of the Utah Film Pod.
I love it. Oh
Well,
gosh.
so
Well,
so
I hope we do stay tied to these theaters, like with the Salt Lake Film Society stuff and here with the Utah
yeah.
Theater. And something we do offer on the utah.film site is there's a section that says showtimes near you. And, going by regions in Utah, it has things like the Salt Lake Film Society page link and the link for the Utah Theater. So, if you're wanting to check out these cool local places, there are links to those because I mean it's just such a fun experience to do something a little different.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I I doing photography and so I wind up on a lot of road trips and it's always fun to kind of go through just little communities, throughout Utah and whatever because there's always one movie theater and it's usually just kind of a little single screen thing and I don't know, I think it's awesome that they're still there and that they haven't been completely converted over to because a lot of them get converted into something else. They were a theater and they became, they might just be for like local stage, musical theater productions or something like that. But I love the little movie houses. So we were going to make it a priority to feature those in the future.
Absolutely.
And speaking of nostalgia, today's or this podcast's uh, biggest release is all about time and looking back on the past and thinking about events in your history and all kinds of stuff. It's called Reminiscence. It is directed by Lisa Joy, and it's one of those movies. So this is kind of my big takeaway from this. We'll talk a little bit more about what it's about here in a second. But I don't know, Danny. I want to lead with a question here. Like, have you ever watched a movie and felt yourself thinking, I really like the world or the universe that this thing is creating, but I don't care about, like, I want to hear a different story. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a movie in particular, but I know I definitely have had that experience where I'll be watching a movie and I'm like, why aren't we following this guy?
Yeah,
Like
right. That's a
there's
good way to put
some
it.
side character who comes in and it's like this person's like way more interesting. Why are we not
Yeah.
focusing on them?
No, I think that's a good way to put it, because that's kind of the feeling that I had with this movie, because there are a
Mm,
lot of elements that I really really liked about this, but I kept feeling like I don't care about this story, and I don't
mm,
particularly feel invested in these people, but I want to spend more time in this place. And which is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a unique take. I think like I say, I think it's something we've experienced from time to time, sometimes with just side characters, or, if characters are talking about things that happened before the movie, that like, well, I want to see that story, right? Like I would rather see that in the
mhm.
movie. But anyway, after that milk toast lukewarm introduction, so Reminiscence is kind of a sci-fi noir, detective mystery type movie, thriller. It's got Hugh Jackman playing a protagonist named Nick. So this takes place in kind of the not so distant future, where it's all set in Miami. But this has nothing to do with the typical Miami that you see in movies and on TV. This is kind of this post-apocalyptic Miami where uh, basically rising ocean levels have flooded a good chunk of Miami and basically any other coastal city around the world. So half the city is kind of, you know, somewhat underwater. And as part of this, there was some kind of border war. And so the characters are kind of referring back to this stuff that's happened in recent years that has kind of put them in this semi post apocalyptic dystopian uh, society, which is really kind of fun, And the movie's not really heavy on special effects, but the effects that they do to kind of portray this Miami, it's, I don't know, there's a little bit of a kind of a Blade Runner vibe to it. Certainly
Mm,
not that sophisticated, not that well executed, but enough to kind of think, oh, this is a cool place. I'd kind of like to spend more time here. So the story focuses again on this character Nick, who is a war veteran who has this special parlor kind of lounge where clients can come in and basically relive moments from their past. And so do you remember Minority Report? Did you see that?
I haven't seen it, but I know of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a weird riff on a similar idea where, basically what happens in Reminiscence is that the client lies down in kind of a isolation tank, and they have like this little headset thing on that plugs into their memory or whatever, and then their memories get projected on this kind of sound stage, and or I guess originally the technology, within the mythos of the movie, originally it was being used for interrogation during the war, right? So they could go into the captive's memory and figure out whether they were lying or
Mm,
whatever. Which, again, this kind of this cool idea.
yeah.
But then after the war, it's kind of become this kind of addictive, indulgent thing for the general public where, if you're just kind of like missing your long lost loved one, or you have some happy memory from the past, there's one character comes in and he is missing his legs, and so he likes to go and go back to this moment when he, before his accident, when he's like playing with his kid and his dog and stuff. And so it's kind of one of these movies that makes you think, oh man, what would I go back to? What do I want to relive, or what do I want to go remember? But you can also see how it's got like this downside where you can get stuck in the past, and nostalgia and grief can kind of overwhelm you. And so anyway, so that's kind of the setting for this thing. And Nick runs this lounge, and he also has become addicted to using it because he is obsessed with this brief relationship he had sometime in the past that ended when the woman he was involved with, who's played by Rebecca Ferguson, just vanishes. So the first half of it is kind of like, oh, well, he's in love with this woman and he wants to find out what happened because he thinks that she didn't just leave him, that there was some nefarious, circumstances or something. And so he's trying to figure out clues, like he'll go back in his memories to try to figure out what happened to her and why. But then, of course, the more he learns and the more people he gets connected to as a result, we learn more and more about the story and the circumstances, and it connects to like local politics and drug dealers and all this kind of stuff, which I won't give away. But so basically, it's kind of like this unfolding, noir sci-fi mystery, and again, like, I would love to see a movie about like this rising ocean tide war, thing where everything's getting flooded, and because it just seems like kind of a cool setting, kind of a cool context, and when they talk about, their memory, because we don't really see memories of the war. That's kind of the weird thing is, most of the projections are pretty, just kind of your pedestrian day-to-day memories of, going back to like basically when Rebecca Ferguson's character shows up, she shows up at the lounge because she's trying to figure out where she left her house keys. And so they go back into her mind to help her like go through her day to figure. It's kind of corny, but it plays into the story eventually. And so and again, it's very, very relatable, right? Because everybody can think about some happy memory that would be really cool to actually relive. And so of course Hugh Jackman's a lot of fun. I think Rebecca Ferguson has been one of my favorite actresses ever since she showed up in that Mission Impossible movie. And
Oh
so
yeah.
really cool people and great idea and setting and concept. But about halfway through it, you're just kind of thinking, I'm just not really interested in this particular story. Like as much as I like the actors, the characters are kind of dull. We don't really know much about them. We don't really care much about them. And it seemed like the more I found out about the truth of the story, the less interested I became in it. So that's probably
Interesting.
that's kind of the most concise way that I would put it. So again, it's one of these ones that like, I like enough about this to wish it were better, but not enough to really say, oh yeah, you got to go check it out. Like, I don't think that you would be hugely disappointed to not, to never see it. But like, I don't know if you'd necessarily walk out and think, oh, I can't believe I wasted my money on that. Maybe this is kind of like a $5 Tuesday type movie, or something like that. But for me, it's coming in at like 2.5 out of 4 because I definitely don't really feel like watching it again. I wouldn't totally dissuade people from seeing it, but I was left wanting more in a not good way.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Are you into mysteries at all? Because
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
that might. Okay.
yeah, no, I like a lot of different genres, and and mysteries certainly. I mean, I guess that's what's kind of weird is like I recognize that, okay, well, this is kind of supposed to be a film noir,
hmm
and Nick
Which
is,
I love that style, and like looking at the trailers, like it does look really cool.
yeah, no,
Like
it's
they did
it
something interesting.
and they did, and kind of to your point, it does have quite a bit in terms of style. I would
Mm.
almost say a little bit too much because it almost seems to be a little too ponderous for its own good.
That's fair.
Yeah, and so it's got some of those appealing elements, but there's just not enough substance to the story itself, I think, to really deliver what it should be. So it's like you got all these great tools and pieces, but you're not building anything. There's just there, it's I think it's just the story and some of the other elements that are just not quite living up to the potential here. Um, it would be yeah. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one because, like I said, I mean, I would love to see another movie set in this this universe or this version of reality, but this one didn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. And it's a bummer too, because like hearing you talk about it, like it just sounds like you said, a perfect mix of things. Like,
This dystopian society, film
Yeah,
noir kind of look, um, but also this idea about kind of escapism into like happier
yeah,
memories,
right,
right? And not
right,
being present. And
right.
like, if you think about the film noir era, like coming out of um, World War One, between World War One, World War Two, that era, Great
Yeah.
Depression, like
Hmm.
movies were big during that time, right? Because it was that form of escapism. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential with those elements for
Yeah.
sure, and with the world. Do you think they would revisit the world at all? Were there any feelings of that, or is this very
Oh,
standalone?
no, I think it's intended to be standalone, and I don't think it's going to be successful enough to inspire any kind of significant spin-off like we would enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And maybe somebody can kind of riff off the idea and do something separate that's a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It definitely feels like it's not meant to be. It's it without giving too much away. The ending is very conclusive. Let's put it
Mm-hmm.
that way. It's very
That's
conclusive.
fair.
And well, and to also be fair, it might just be because I'm so of my inner frustration with coastal bias, right? Because it's all about what's happening to the coastal cities, and that's ruined the world. But like here in Salt Lake, yeah, we're fine. Yeah, it's no big deal. we're just in we're just in flyover country. No, not worrying about the Great Salt Lake rising too high. So I guess.
I don't know. Our park flooded over this
Oh,
week.
did it? Did it
Turns
really?
out, yeah, no, it
Yeah.
totally did. It looked like a little duck pond.
No, we
But
got definitely getting a little more of that. That's has been welcome.
yeah,
But no.
but that's probably
So
as much as we'll get.
right now, I did tease last week that we saw a movie, or that I saw a movie that I actually did like. So we're leading with the one that's disappointing, and now we can talk about one that was actually kind of fun, and I'm counting on you to add a lot to this discussion because for two reasons. Number one, you have also seen this one,
I have.
but well, I'll tell you the second reason a little bit later on because that might actually kind of inform our discussion. So the other movie is Free Guy, which came out about a week ago, I guess now, and of course it's a little bit more public. I think this one's been getting quite a bit of publicity, and it's another sci-fi movie. Um, this one is about a a character who he works as a bank teller in this place called Free City, and everything is great in life until he realizes that he's living inside of a video game and that he is, in fact, just a video game character. Sean Levy is the director, and again, Ryan Reynolds plays the main character, whose name is Guy, which is one of those things that's kind of fun and cute, but also can kind of get confusing if depending on if you use the term "guy" a lot as a as a general pronoun. Um,
That's fair.
so so this discussion might get a little bit confusing here and there, but we'll try to keep it together. No, it's just like I say, it's about this character who he kind of has this. He reminded me a lot of the Emmett character from the Lego Movie, who's just kind of yeah,
Oh
just
yeah,
glassy eyed and naive and thinks everything is wonderful and awesome, right? And he kind of has this routine he goes through from day to day where he's working at his bank and just kind of going around and getting the same coffee every day. And even to kind of to the point, he even is totally happy and smiley even when the bank gets robbed, right? So even if, somebody comes and robs the bank, it's no big deal. But that's also probably because it's such a regular occurrence because this
Yeah.
world,
Yeah, I was about to say it's
yeah,
also when the bank gets robbed. It's not if. It will happen
yeah,
multiple times during the
because
day.
this world, this free city, is just constant mayhem and chaos. And to him, it's just
Basically Grand Theft Auto, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like he's living inside of a Grand Theft Auto first person shooter type of environment, which he is, and that's what he
Yeah.
discovers is that all of these people around him who are seem to be kind of integrally connected to this violence and mayhem. They're always wearing sunglasses, and he calls them the sunglass people, and they're heroes to him. And at some point, he gets a pair of his own sunglasses and realizes because these glasses reveal the game, the gamer perspective, and he discovers
Hmm.
that he's actually inside of a video game, and of course he's not a user in the quote unquote real world. He's what was the term that they used for it? The NPC non playing.
Yeah, NPC, non-playable character.
Yeah, and so which means that he's like one of the expendable side people who just gets smashed and blown up, in the process of the other real life gamers playing the game. And so there's this weird existential question, which kind of gets resolved, and obviously we'll kind of get more into it as we talk. But
Hmm.
what's going on in the real world, right? Because there is a real world where the sunglass people are, you just kind of your everyday gamers who are participating in this. I'm trying to remember what was the name of the actual game, like because it's Free City. Is that the name of the game too?
Free City is the
It
name of
is
the
the name of
game.
the game.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so we spend the time in Guy's world in the game, but then we also spend time in the again quote unquote real world where various characters are trying to make sense of what the heck. There's this NPC character. There's this NPC that is suddenly sentient and an artificial intelligence and making decisions on its own. And so kind of a fun idea.
Hmm.
What did you, I mean, I basically, I mean, to kind of cut to the chase, I gave this one about, 3 stars out of 4, just a good, solid, fun, good movie. But what's your take on this one, Danny?
Yeah, I loved the world. I loved all the little details, especially once he put the glasses on, and or even before then, like just seeing the mayhem in the background,
Yeah,
and where it's just like, oh yeah, no, our buddy's getting mugged over there. Yeah, that's what happens. It's a
yeah.
Monday,
Very,
like
very
that's
matter
kind
of
of the
fact.
attitude. Yeah, yeah, and I loved that, and just all the references, the showing how video games work. Um I enjoy video games a lot, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Ryan Reynolds was hilarious. I
Yeah,
think this was just it was his role. Millie, who's the girl that he falls for, who's
right.
an actual um, real world person, and that's why he goes after the glasses. Like he wants to be like her and communicate with her. And you mentioned that like he realizes he's in a video game, but that doesn't happen for kind of a little bit. So I like this
Right.
moment where he doesn't understand what the glasses are, but he knows it's his way to get to her. And so there's kind of
That's his
this,
motivation.
yeah, and there's this funny dynamic between the two of them where this is his world, and so he just assumes that it's normal, but then for her, she understands this is a video game, and so they're kind of at odds there, and she thinks he is a playable character for a while, so he's acting kind of weird, and she just finds that really off-putting. But it's hilarious seeing those interactions a lot.
Yeah.
Another shout out I have to give to the cast. Joe Keery as Keys was
Yeah.
really great. He's one of the real world people who works on the game, so he's kind of the one noticing Ryan Reynolds' guy. He notices the AI there trying to fix the problem, but he was really really fun. The whole cast, I think everyone just really gave it their all to flesh out these characters, whether they were in the video game world or in the real world. It was really really fun. in
It
that way.
was. It was. No,
Yeah.
there's a very there's a very happy, fun spirit to the vibe to the game that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I think kind of like I said, even though because it did really there's some very obvious connections to other movies. And the first one that jumped out to me was Lego Movie. The funny other one
Hmm.
that I'll just kind of hint at because I don't want to give away too much about the movie itself, but I wound up watching the original Tron a few days after seeing Free Guy
Oh.
without even not even as an intentional connection, but if you watch the original Tron, there's actually a fairly substantial plot point that is identical in both of the movies. Um, but in spite of the the similarities, and so I can't give Free Guy a 100% pass for originality, but it's still it's whereas a lot of the movies that I've seen in recent weeks, I've liked things about them, but couldn't really get behind the whole movie. This is one
Hmm.
that just kind of felt like, no, this is fun. I can give this one a clear thumbs up, and
Yeah. And
it's
something else that helped me see how fun it was is this was another time I got to go to a theater, of course, but like it was packed. Every
oh
seat
great.
was filled, which I hadn't seen in forever, like, but I could hear people behind me laughing at certain things. There's this one moment where it's kind of more romantic. It's kind of the turning point in a relationship. And I heard every girl just sigh and aw. And it was that was super fun,
Yeah,
because this is a very, it has that happy feeling, very energetic, like I think it's great for a big group like that. I
I
think that
agree.
added
I
to
agree.
the atmosphere.
It's a movie that would be fun to see at least with a group of friends, if not a whole theater full of people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, that so now in the sake of being comprehensive or thorough or whatever, if there was one thing that I thought could potentially be an issue and was maybe a little bit of a challenge for me, because you mentioned that you're a big fan of video games and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I am not a gamer, and so outside of a brief flirtation in junior high with Nintendo and Mario Brothers, and a long-standing fondness for Tetris, I'm not a gamer, which I think is interesting because one of the aspects of this movie that I think is really notable is how once Ryan Reynolds becomes sentient, you
Mhm.
know, he starts essentially playing the game, but as a good guy. And so there's this interesting
Yeah.
commentary on, the nature of violent first person shooter games that I
Mhm.
think is interesting because there's so much and so that's the thing I liked. That's one thing I really, really liked about it.
Yep.
The thing that I felt like might be an obstacle for some people is that it's so heavy on kind of the gamer slash code geek slash technical, which is understandable because they have to find a way to kind of toggle between these two different, the gaming world and the real world, and explain what is going on. And so I could see how, like, I was able to follow it okay. Like, at a certain point, I just didn't worry about, okay, well, I'm obviously not going to understand everything everybody's referring to. But it did seem like if you don't have a pretty, good grasp of gaming and just kind of technology, virtual reality stuff in general, there was a lot of that to kind of get through in terms of exposition and stuff. And so that was one thing that I thought, well, that might be an impediment to some audiences, but not enough to still, you know, endorse the movie.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point because I picked up on that stuff too. I mean, I understood a lot of those things. They had like YouTube gamers popping up. I knew a lot of those guys.
Yeah,
So
I saw some of those
yeah,
cameos, and it's like, you know what? I know I'm supposed to know who that person is, but I have
but
no
I don't.
idea who that
Yeah.
person is.
Well, I mean, the thing that I had against it, and it's hard. Like, so this movie, I don't think I enjoyed as much as you did because like there are things that like I can't put my finger on, but I just I don't know. And I think for me, especially after seeing Raiders, a lot of it is like I care
Hmm.
so much about how a movie is going to age. And
Ah,
so this movie is just such a product of now with those
yeah,
terms, with the certain games, with the cameos, And I
right.
think some movies can become classics like that where,
Uh-huh.
you just love the cameo for the sake of the cameo in that movie, not necessarily like you grew up with that
Right.
celebrity,
But
right?
but it becomes dated though.
It's going to be super dated. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good acting and basic story going on where it's like I think it's going to be okay, but I can see that kind of deterring audiences a little bit. There was one big issue I had with it, and that was all the sex jokes. There were so many innuendos and just like all sorts of weird language,
Oh yeah.
and and I understood it, like especially with like the real world and the gamers, like yeah, gamers are vulgar and insane, like there's kind of that stereotype,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right,
So
right.
when it played into that, like I totally got it. When it came to Guy's character though, and him using certain words, it felt kind of weird because like I totally see what you mean with like the Emmett from Lego movie. But
Yeah.
imagine if like Emmett also knew all these things where I liked Guy most when he was like innocent. So like the innuendos when it's like he didn't understand things, those were funny. But like when he was blatantly saying dirty
Oh,
things, it's like
it
I didn't
undermined the character
understand
for you.
that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
No, and that's well, that actually kind of leads into the second. I was gonna. I hinted earlier that there were two reasons I wanted to get your input, and
Mm-hmm.
the second one, and I guess I'd have to use this as a criticism as well, is that even though I definitely liked the movie, enjoyed it, endorse it, etc.,
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it. Like there's because it's been gosh, I think it's been about 3 weeks or so since I saw it. We had a fairly early press screening for it. That was
Yeah.
a good 2 weeks before it came out, and of course it's been out for a week now,
Mm-hmm.
as of our recording. And I don't remember a whole lot of details. There's I which tells me that this is a movie that's fun to see, but isn't going to be memorable enough that it's oh, I gotta go. I don't know that this is going to be any kind of a classic comedy in the years to come, unless and
Mm-hmm.
here again you could speak to this more than I could, unless it's really tapping into the gamer culture in a way that is going to really resonate with them. Um, this was just kind of a fun, lightweight, see it, enjoy it, forget about it little movie for the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree because I think that's why they held off on the release for so long, where this needed to be a movie shown in front of a packed audience so
Yeah,
that everyone can have a good time with it. Maybe a few will buy it because it's like, oh, I am that audience. I love the video game thing, or the story really resonated with me. Maybe in it for the romance. I don't know. Like there might be certain elements that audiences will want to remember, but I think for the most part, it's the blockbuster in theater kind of movie.
yeah, and which is a tricky thing right now because I've heard on more than one occasion the idea that the even though we've been getting more movies out recently, that the choice of movies we're getting is intentional in the sense that these aren't necessarily like the heavy hitters. These are let's test this out and see how things go.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't come out in droves to see these movies, no big loss. I mean, I heard that about because I've been reading that the Suicide Squad just got good reviews apparently from other people, um, but
Ouch.
but didn't no, and I didn't hate it. I liked a lot.
No.
Again, it was one of those things where I liked a lot of things about it. I just didn't like
Mm-hmm.
it altogether.
Yeah.
But still just didn't do very well box office
Mm-hmm.
wise, and is being considered a flop. And so these movies might still just be testing the waters, and not to veer off onto the COVID subject too much, but based on what we're seeing at the moment, who knows if we're getting ready to go back underwater for a little while. But anyway, let's let's move on to the feature for today because I don't know, unless you have anything more to say about Free Guy, I'm kind of excited to talk about our next subject.
Yeah, no, I think that covers Free Guy, where it's a fun movie to see. If that piques your interest, it was a good time. So I think we covered that one pretty well.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good because it's the end of August, August 20th, when we're actually recording this. And traditionally, not one of my favorite times of year because I remember as a kid, August used to drive me crazy because June and July were like solid summer months, right? Um,
Hmm.
even if because when I was growing up, we used to get out about the first week or so in June, and I think that's pretty similar to now. Um, but then August, I always hated because it's like, yeah, it's still summer, but before the end of this month, get me back to school. And as far as I can tell, like I don't start well, and you don't start because we're both connected to Weber State
Hmm.
till the 30th. So we still got
Yeah,
a little bit of time left. But I think that
but
other
still
places,
technically in August. Yeah.
right, right. But then I think this past week, a lot of other kids have started going back to school. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, we decided that we should share some of our favorite back to school recommendations for movies. And this was kind of an interesting experience. Maybe before you tell our loyal listeners what you came up with, Dan, if you wouldn't mind, how about you start off?
Uh-huh.
Tell us a little bit about your experience figuring out what movie you want to recommend as your back to school, whether it's a favorite, whether it's a just a recommendation.
Hmm.
Because I think the process of coming up with these movies is almost more interesting than the movies themselves in some cases. But I'm going to pitch it over to you.
I thought this was a great idea for us to do this, thematically, back to school. And as I started thinking about what movie to pick, I realized I don't watch a lot of school movies, I don't think. At least not ones that I'd like recommend. Like my biggest back to school movie would probably be like High School Musical back in the day,
Oh
and
gosh, that's right. Yeah.
now yeah, but like now it's like I don't really want to, you know, highlight that one and I'm really picky when it comes to kid actors and but when I find a good one, it's like, "Oh my goodness, this movie's amazing." Um so I was last night just panicking trying to figure out what movie to pick and my husband reminded me that movie that I talk about a lot, um, which it's in hopes of convincing him to someday watch it, is Eighth Grade, which
Oh,
is
such a
written
good
and
one.
directed by Bo Burnham, who I think is just, he's brilliant. And this movie is just so accurate in the most painful ways, but also just adorable ways possible. It nails it. And I think eighth grade was like my worst school year. So
Well,
there's
it's
something
everybody's
about
worst
that
school
too.
year. That's
Yeah,
what's so great about this movie
exactly.
is it's universal. It's
It's
like you
very
you
universal.
can't connect to this unless you're just a terrible person who who was making everybody else's life miserable in the eighth grade.
Yeah, no, it's so
Sorry,
true
sorry,
though.
keep talking.
And the fun thing is this came out this summer that I had just graduated from high school and my brother had just finished up 8th grade and he was
Yeah.
going into high school the next year. And um so we watched it together and it was just the two of us. And so there's kind of something fun there, that bonding, but also just laughing at it and sometimes like, oh, I'm trying to remember a specific moment like I think they were like in a hallway and this one kid was like playing with his gum outside of his mouth and my brother was like, "Oh my gosh, I was that kid." And just like little things like that. It was hilarious and I think this story is just so fun
Yeah.
about a girl just getting ready for high school. She has like a little YouTube channel which is, something
Oh,
very
that's
tied to
right.
Bo
I had
Burnham.
forgotten about because I oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's coming back now.
where she yeah, where she like gives little advice on like putting yourself out
Oh,
there even though she was
because she's got
voted
like
like
4 followers and
yeah, I
stuff.
know hardly anybody, basically no views. And she's voted most quiet
Yeah,
at the end of the
right.
year and stuff like that.
There's something
Oh
so
yeah.
authentic about Elsie Fisher is the one who plays Kayla.
That's right. That's right.
There's something so just genuine about her performance, and a lot of it she said is like, "This is just me,"
Yeah.
and that's so fun to watch. And then she does step out of her comfort zone, and she does little things to get closer with her dad, and so like any little sign of progress, you cheer for her. You're so
Oh yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
But it's very realistic. It's not like in other
No, you
movies
don't.
where you do this big great thing and you're amazing and you're suddenly like high school quarterback and stuff like that. It's like most of us are just average, but it's making
Mhm.
those little steps. It's that's what's beautiful, I think, about growing up and about life. So it's such a great film.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you chose that one because that one didn't occur to me. And maybe it's because I've just been desperately trying to block anything junior high related out of my memory. But yeah, no, that one, and she is so adorable. Just
She's so
your heart just goes out for her constantly and cheers for her, and just because you just know the odds that are stacked against her, just because that's just the way life is at that age, and she's trying, and she's out there, and and doing her best, and like this like I said, the social media thing is so like, oh, this poor girl, she's out there and she's so sincere and just happy and putting on a good face even though nobody cares, and
good.
oh, just because it's heartbreaking, but it's still like a positive. I'd still think of it as an uplifting movie,
Yeah.
and yeah, excellent choice, excellent one. I'm almost embarrassed now because mine does not carry that same value, I guess. No, because I had a tough time with this one.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I thought this was, oh crap, and say now I'm not even thinking of another one. Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones. So I'm just gonna say the movie that I planned to feature just changed in the last 2 minutes. And I'll explain why, because part of my struggle with this, you know, is okay. So is what should qualify, right? Because there are lots of movies that have scenes at school, right? Or that have protagonists or characters who are students, but it's not really a school movie, right? And so because one of the ones I was thinking about sharing was Me and Earl and the Dying Girl from about
Oh.
yeah 5 or 6 years ago, where it's this kid who's kind of alienated and just kind of a loner. Through the coercion of his mother, winds up befriending this girl, his classmate, who has cancer, and so they kind of develop this strange kind of uneasy friendship over the course of the year, and as he's kind of trying to get ready for college, and she's obviously facing you know mortality. And so there are lots of scenes that take place at school, and the film features one of my all-time favorite teacher characters. John Bernthal plays the history teacher that the main character kind of hangs out with. Again, because he's just kind of this loner who's alienated from all of his, the kids his own age. But it's like, well, that's not really a school movie though. It's something else. And then I didn't want to go with one of the obvious ones. It's like, oh, I could say Dead Poet Society, or
I
something
didn't
like
even
that.
think
Which,
about Dead Poets. Man.
oh yeah, no. And the more I thought about it, the list got long. There really are a lot of potential. Even like Animal House, right, is kind of a college kind of crazy movie. And I thought, well, as a child of the '80s, it would be logical for me to share a John Hughes movie, because that was such a huge thing. I've never really been a big fan of Breakfast Club, or Pretty in Pink, or the Molly Ringwald stuff. Well, honestly, I was too young. Part of the reason I didn't
True.
connect to those movies is because they came out while I was around, but I was too young. This was like way before I was old enough to kind of appreciate, you know, certainly something like Breakfast Club, which was just way over my head. But the other one I was thinking was like, well, what about Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Because that's, again, it's like, is that a school movie, or is that a kid who takes a break from school movie,
That's a
right? Because
ditch
the
school
whole
movie.
right, no, exactly, exactly. I thought, well, that's not a good one to share at like August
Yeah.
because we're all returning and this is depressing and it's got to be something about the school experience. And so eventually, I am getting somewhere eventually here. Um, so earlier this morning, I thought, well, what about School of Rock,
I love
which
that movie.
which is not one of my, which is a good movie, but not one of my favorite movies. 2003, Jack Black plays this kind of roustabout who gets kicked out of his band, winds up taking a job as a substitute teacher, and teaches these kids to put together their own rock band, right? Fun little movie. Like I said, not one of my all-time favorites. I think I might have only watched it all the way through only once or twice.
Hmm.
But good movie, fun movie, and then kind of given my own background with music. Oh yeah, no, that's kind of a good choice, something that I relate to because, I in fact the band that I currently play with, my kind of I don't know if you call it my present band because I've been in and out a lot over the years. Me and Jack Black have that in common. The band that I currently play with is actually we actually got our start playing for kids. Like we were put together. One of my best friends, his wife, uh, put us together to play a show at a charter school in North Salt Lake years ago. And it was kind of like a school assembly where, like, oh, if you kids raise enough money for this school fundraiser thing we're doing, we'll celebrate. We'll have this big assembly, and we'll have a real rock band to play for you, right? And so she like said, hey Brett, get a hold of Josh and Randy and everybody, and let's put a band together. And so a couple years in a row, we would just play these annual kind of 3 song sets over at the charter school, and they were just a blast. Like I
Oh,
have
how
never
fun.
had a more fun audience than these kids. And I could say all kinds of cynical things about, oh yeah, they don't know any better, and you didn't worry about screwing up because they just love the noise. But like it was the vibe, the atmosphere. It was so much fun, and still to this day, we wound up doing 3 shows for them all together over the course of about 3 or 4 years, and just great stuff. Which I could tell more stories, but I'll try to stay on point. So, School of Rock seemed like the obvious choice until I got on the School of Rock IMDb page and saw a linked trailer for one of my all-time favorite movies that I had completely spaced, and which is so much better and so much more perfect as my recommendation for a back to school movie. And that is Sing Street.
Oh, okay.
Did you see this one?
I have not seen this.
I 100% endorse and recommend Sing Street as a back to school movie, as a music movie, as a good movie, like everything. Like the soundtrack is incredible. It's like fun as a romantic comedy. It's awesome as this coming of age movie. I saw this, and even as a fun movie to see with a crowd, I saw this at Sundance back in 2016, I think it was. Just kind of a packed little house, and such a great vibe. This is the story. It's set in the 80s, and it's about this kid who's 15, 16 years old, and he starts a band at his school exclusively to impress a girl. He's got this. There's this girl who so he's going to an all boys school, and it's actually called Sing Street, but like Synge or something like that. And there's this girl that he always notices across the street who's always kind of hanging out and like smoking on the front doorstep. And so one day he gets up the nerve to go and try to talk to her, and winds up like lying to her that he's in a band. And he convinces her, like she mentions that she's like a part-time model or something like this, right? And so he's like, oh well, you should come be in one of our videos. And then promptly like walks across the street and tells his best friends like, dude, we got to start a band. Like there's because he's got to do this whole thing just to kind of preserve this phony uh you know this lie. But it's from John Carney, is the director. He's the same guy who did Once and Begin Again. And if you've seen any of those movies,
Oh
they
wow.
are, yeah,
Yeah, no, I love Once.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, everybody who's ever seen Once that I've talked to loved Once. So this is the same guy.
Cool.
This one's PG-13. So it's not. I mean, his other movies aren't. You know, it's mostly just kind of language and the profanity that's made them are. But this one's a PG-13.
Mhm.
It is so fun, and it's got this great 80s soundtrack, plus it's mixed in with music that the actual band plays, because so this kid, he winds up forming this band and kind of finds random classmates and stuff who do different things, and they basically put together a school band. And and are building up to, kind of like a school assembly is their big finale. And of course he's trying to to date the girl and stuff. And that obviously doesn't go smoothly, because that wouldn't be a very good movie if it did. It's set in Ireland. And so
Yeah.
it's during the 1980s. It's a very, very difficult economic times. And so one of the, the main themes is just kind of how people are kind of impoverished, and music is kind of a way to find happiness and joy in the middle of rough circumstances. And so Connor is the main kid. Ferdio Walsh-Pilo is the actor, who, sad to say, this is the only thing I've seen him in so far. Lucy Boynton is the girl. And if you see her, you probably recognize her from a few other things, because she's been in, I want to say she was in the new Murder in the Orient Express. Oh, she also played the wife in Bohemian Rhapsody. So she was in
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, but then the character that really jumped out at me is Connor's older brother, Brendan, who's played by Jack Rayner, who you probably would recognize. He was in Midsummer, which I have not seen, but he also played in one of the Transformers movies, which is kind of unfortunate, because when I found that afterwards, I was like, oh my gosh, I really love this guy, this movie. He's also in this crap Transformers movie. But anyway, the older, and I know, again, don't want to like say too much about it, but his character, like, I'm not sure if he got any kind of supporting actor type of accolades, but if he didn't, he should have. And just, I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, because I think if you like any of these genres or any of these elements, you really got to go see it on your own. But yeah, 100%, back to school or no, this is one of my best recommendations I can make.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you were able to remember that. I think
Yeah.
we both kind of had an issue drawing blanks and everything, but I mean, as soon as you started listing off movies, like, I just realized there's so many great back to school movies out there that I just totally spaced out on. And now I've got something
new to watch.
new that I need to watch. Yeah.
And maybe something I need to go back and rewatch, because 8th grade, that was a good one. That gave me,
I mean,
gave
it's
me positive
painful.
vibes.
You have to prepare
Right.
for the cringe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's there, but there's a value to it. There really is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and certainly no obligation, because I was going to say, like, maybe, as we kind of wrap up here, we can mention some of the other places you can catch up with us and what we're doing. But maybe, I don't know, maybe give it some thought, but we got to write up like a recommendation of like a kind of a feature article or a top 10 list of some of these that we can post on our website, utah.film, so you can find out a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We'll definitely get on that.
Nice.
And hopefully you guys can watch those movies with us.
That's right. And in the meantime, we are putting up new reviews and content on utah.film. Should have a review for Reminiscence up, hopefully by the time you hear this recording, because, seeing as it's already in theaters, I probably ought to post my review. But anyway, thank you so much for your participation. Dani, any final thoughts before we let our audience go about with their daily lives?
Good luck getting back to school. I know I'm needing it, so it's mostly for me. But
Speaking from the other side of the table, the teachers are just as stressed. So
I believe it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for listening, and be sure to leave comments and messages and all kinds of happy, good vibes and stuff like that. And good luck back to school, back to work, back to life in general. And we'll see you next time.